Today I'm going to show you the different coffee modes available on the Cecotec Power Espresso Touch Cold Brew Latte. It's a coffee machine that costs less than $100 and delivers excellent results. I don't know if you've seen my video about decaf coffee, but until now I had never been able to make a good decaf with my previous machines. Either almost no coffee came out, or it ended up being too watery. With this machine, I can make decaf coffee exceptionally well. As you can see, this dial lets you adjust how much milk foam you want, whether you prefer more or less foam. I'll explain that in more detail later. For now, I'm going to show you the different coffee modes this machine offers. Here we have the 9 different modes. Later, I'll show you each one individually and the coffee it produces. Keep in mind that I made all these coffees using the same amount of coffee grounds, so don't pay too much attention to the foam or the overall quality of the coffee. These are just simple test coffees so you can see the amount each mode produces. Let's start with the cold coffee mode. As soon as you select it, the machine immediately starts brewing. One thing to note is that if you've made a hot coffee beforehand, the water may still come out slightly warm. For the best results, I recommend starting with a completely cool machine so you get a properly chilled coffee. The manufacturer recommends adding ice directly to the water tank to make the coffee even colder during extraction, although that's really a matter of personal preference. Another option is simply to add ice afterward. The important thing is to avoid pouring hot coffee over ice, since this mode is designed to brew using cold water extraction. This is the amount of coffee it produces. According to the manufacturer, it delivers approximately 60 milliliters, with a possible variation of around 30%. As you can see, we checked the temperature and it's cool. It's slightly warm, but it definitely doesn't burn. Now I'm going to show you the longest coffee mode available. It's this one right here. This mode produces between 300 and 400 milliliters of coffee. The machine continues brewing for about 90 seconds, making it the largest coffee option it offers. I only noticed this later when I checked the instruction manual. I actually made a bit of a mess because coffee ended up spilling everywhere, and this glass would have completely filled up. According to the manual, this mode produces 300 milliliters. So the minimum amount is already 300 milliliters, which basically fills an entire cup with coffee. Since I was using the same coffee dose for all the tests, the coffee became very diluted and the machine was pushing through a huge amount of water. What I ended up doing was stopping the extraction. The good thing is that you can stop this mode at any time. In fact, you can also use it as a manual brewing mode, because honestly, nobody is going to make a 90-second coffee. There's no normal coffee cup that can handle that much coffee. So let's move on to the next mode. The next mode is the Americano, which is the middle button on the right side. This one produces approximately 120 milliliters, with the same variation of plus or minus 30%. Let's brew one. I'm leaving everything in real time so you can see exactly how long each extraction takes. An Americano is supposed to be a long coffee, of course. What I don't really understand is why the long coffee mode is so extremely long. Producing 300 to 400 milliliters seems excessive to me. At that point, I wouldn't really call it a coffee anymore. I think the machine's specifications are a little questionable there. And there we have the finished Americano. Now I'm going to pour it into a measuring cup so you can see whether it matches the amount the manufacturer claims. It's normal that the volume is slightly higher because, as I mentioned before, the coffee is very diluted. There's very little resistance from the coffee grounds, so more liquid passes through. We're getting about 150 milliliters, which fits within the additional 30% variation specified by the manufacturer. Now we move on to the milk-based drinks. As you can see, we're going to add the milk container. If we remove the milk system, the machine won't allow us to select any of the 4 drink modes on the bottom row. Once the milk container is attached again, we can select the milk-based drinks. We're going to press this button here, the one with the large cafe latte cup icon. This is the latte mode, which produces approximately 160 milliliters, with a possible variation of around 30%. First, the machine dispenses the milk, about 120 milliliters, and then it prepares an espresso of roughly 40 milliliters. Once you're finished, you can store the milk container in the refrigerator as it is, or you can remove it and clean everything thoroughly. Personally, I recommend removing and cleaning it every time because that way you also clean the tube and the entire milk system properly. Later in the video, I'll show you exactly how the cleaning process works. I'm leaving everything in real time so you can see how long it takes for the machine to heat up and start preparing the drink. This gives you a realistic idea of the time between pressing the button and the coffee actually starting to come out. Here it is. And while we wait for this latte to finish, what better way to celebrate than by hitting the subscribe button and giving the video a like. It costs nothing and helps the channel a lot while we're standing here waiting for coffee. Now the coffee extraction begins. The machine has already finished dispensing the milk, and it's starting the espresso shot. One important question for you: if you own this coffee machine, which drink would you try first? Let me know in the comments. I'm always curious to see everyone's coffee preferences. And there we have our latte, ready to go. Let's take it out and have a closer look. I'll move the camera so we can see it from above. As you can see, it's quite a small drink. Honestly, it doesn't look like 160 milliliters to me, but that probably comes down to the variation we talked about earlier. It might be closer to 90 or 100 milliliters in this particular test. Now let's move on to the cappuccino mode. This time I'm using a glass cup so you can get a better look at the quality and the layers of the drink. The first one was made in a regular mug, so it was much harder to appreciate the result. As I was saying, you can barely see the quality of the drink in that cup. So now let's take a look at how the cappuccino mode works. The cappuccino mode produces approximately 120 milliliters in total, made up of around 80 milliliters of milk and 40 milliliters of coffee. So compared to the latte mode, this one uses slightly less milk. Because of the foam, it looks like much more, but in reality it's about 80 milliliters of milk. I currently have the foam setting adjusted to maximum. And now it's starting to dispense the 40 milliliters of coffee. As you can see, look at where the coffee begins and where the foam starts. There's actually quite a thick layer of foam on top, which is exactly what you'd expect from a cappuccino. And there we have it. This is our finished cappuccino. It really does contain a lot of foam. Without the foam, it would probably fill only about half the glass. So overall, it's pretty close to what the manufacturer claims. Here it is. Honestly, it looks fantastic, and I can already tell you that it tastes really good as well. For anyone wondering, the coffee beans I use are the ones you can see in the background. They're Marcilla coffee beans. I also have a few other varieties at home. I've got one from Lavazza Oro, Marcilla, and another brand that I can't remember right now. I switch between all three, and honestly, they're all very good. I'll leave links in the description if you want to check them out. As always, it helps support the channel, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. A win-win for everyone. Now let's move on to the last milk function, which is milk foam only. You can use this for things like a hot chocolate drink, chocolate milk, or any beverage where you just want warm, frothy milk without adding coffee. And before anyone says anything, no, I'm not trying to promote any particular brand here. Nobody has sponsored this video yet. But if any hot chocolate companies are watching, feel free to give me a call. And that's it. We've selected the milk foam mode, and now let's see how long it takes before it starts heating up and dispensing the foam. And there it goes. And there we have it. If you haven't already told me which coffee you would try first, make sure to leave it in the comments below. Personally, I'd probably go for an iced coffee. In the middle of summer, that sounds absolutely perfect. Of course, if you're watching this during the winter, you might prefer something warmer. It really depends on where you are and what time of year it is. I have no idea when you'll be watching this video. And there we go. This is the final glass of milk foam. The process takes about 25 seconds, and I'd estimate it produces around 150 milliliters of milk once the foam is included. As I mentioned earlier, after using the milk system, you can either store the milk container in the refrigerator or clean it immediately. Now I'm going to show you the cleaning function. This process cleans both the milk frother and the milk circuit inside the machine. The first thing you need to do is thoroughly clean the milk container itself. In this test, I only added a little water and ran the cleaning cycle. However, after finishing all these coffee tests, I gave everything a much more thorough cleaning and then filled the container with fresh water for the cleaning process. I think for this cleaning mode it might make sense to set the foam adjustment to the minimum position. I didn't do that during my test. I left it at the maximum foam setting, and everything worked perfectly fine. The water still flows through without any issues. Maybe if you set it to the minimum position, the water comes out in a stronger stream. Honestly, I'm not sure because I haven't tested it myself. But if you own this coffee machine and want to give it a try, let me know what happens. We also remove the coffee filter, clean it thoroughly, and once everything is clean, we put it back in place. This cleaning cycle is something that should be done regularly. Personally, I plan to run it about once a week to keep all the filters and internal components clean. The good thing is that it only takes around 30 to 60 seconds. I'm leaving it in real time so you can see exactly how long the process takes. First, we empty the container so everything is ready for the cleaning cycle. And there it goes. The machine starts by flushing water through the milk frother. I'm not exactly sure what the technical name for this part is, but you know the piece I mean. It cleans that circuit first, and then it moves on to cleaning the upper section of the system. As I mentioned, the whole process takes about a minute at most. You simply fill the container, press the cleaning button, and then you can walk away and do something else while the machine takes care of the cleaning. Honestly, I think running this cycle once a week is a very good idea. I use reverse osmosis water, and I think that's particularly important for a machine like this. If you haven't seen my video about installing a reverse osmosis system, I'll leave a link for it. We installed ours ourselves, and the process was surprisingly simple. In my opinion, it's well worth it because it helps reduce limescale buildup and protects your appliances over time. I actually cut part of the footage here because I thought the machine was going to overflow the cup. However, after running a second cleaning cycle, I noticed that it stops automatically once it has dispensed about 1 full cup of water. So the process is completely automatic and finishes on its own. At this point, we've covered all of the milk-based functions. You've already seen every milk mode available on the machine. The only things left to show are the single espresso mode and the double espresso mode, and then we'll have covered every function this coffee machine offers. Now let's move on to the double espresso mode, which is this button right here. This mode produces approximately 80 milliliters of coffee, with a possible variation of around 30%. Keep in mind that the machine is extracting a little more than normal during these tests because I'm using a very light coffee dose. There isn't much resistance from the coffee grounds, so more liquid passes through. You'll notice that some coffee spills slightly outside the cup here. That happened because I was recording at the same time, and the vibration from the machine caused the cup to move. In fact, that's one small issue with this machine. It generates quite a bit of vibration, and cups can slowly slide across the drip tray while the coffee is brewing. I'll probably look into a solution later, maybe adding some kind of non-slip pad underneath the cup to keep it in place. As you can see, the final amount is roughly equivalent to a full cortado-sized glass. As for the single espresso mode, unfortunately I forgot to record it. That mode produces around 50 milliliters of coffee, so it's slightly smaller than the double espresso. It's basically what I would consider a standard single espresso or a classic cortado-sized coffee. And that's it for this review. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.